of all, my name is Laura Bennegadi. I am the co-founder and CEO of the ArtBound Initiative program. We'll explain a little bit what that is later down the line, but we are here today for Insider Talk, featuring Michael Mann, who is a fashion designer at Ralph Lauren. So just showcasing a little cool video about Ralph Lauren. I don't have to introduce Ralph Lauren. You guys obviously all have heard of who they are. So about our speaker today, Michael, thank you so much for coming in. I just want to introduce of course who you are. So Michael's a fashion designer at Ralph Lauren, and has been working there for a little bit now. He has a background in menswear design and has worked an intern in really well-known brands, including Thom Browne and Tommy Hilfiger. I'm French. I always butcher all the names. Is it Tommy Hilfiger?
Hilfiger. Yeah,
Right,
Hilfiger.
I got that. So about some highlights that we're gonna have during this event. So you're gonna gain insight of what it is like to work at a high-end brand and what it takes to actually reach that level, right? So I think Michael's gonna be very generous with his knowledge and how he got there. Discovering also the types of maybe we'll talk a little bit about some jobs and maybe some skills as well for you guys to enter this industry, because it's obviously an extremely competitive industry. And then we will talk also a little bit more about our program towards the end of the presentation, and talk a bit about what it entails, some of the company partners, and talking about our spring and summer 2024 internships. Michael is actually a coach as well of our program, so Michael will stay during that presentation, and then we can also chat. You will have the opportunity to ask questions, so please, during this time that Michael is talking, that I'm talking, I want you guys to go on the chat, be asking questions, because we're going to read. I don't know if we'll be able to get to all of them, but we'll try to get to as many as possible. So Michael, thank you so much. I will kind of perhaps leave it on to you right now for a short introduction, and then afterwards, I've got some questions prepared for you. So thanks again for doing this.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Hey guys, as Laura mentioned, my name is Michael Mann. I am currently a fashion designer at Ralph Lauren. Like Laura said, I don't know that Ralph Lauren really needs that much of an introduction, but just to give you guys kind of an overview, Ralph Lauren is a brand that was started by the man, Ralph Lauren himself, in 1967. He had a drawer of ties that he sold out of the Empire State Building. And then by 1969, he was selling his first line in Bloomingdale's. He opened his flagship store in New York City in 1986. 1997, he was a publicly traded company. And since then, he has expanded that company into things like hospitality. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ralph's Coffee. He has the Polo Bar. He also has numerous other labels under the Ralph Lauren umbrella, RRL, Polo. Just some images here. You can see there's a brand called Rugby. He dresses people on the red carpet. For instance, Gwyneth Paltrow, when she won for Shakespeare in Love. Princess Diana. There's a whole polo shirt book. Definitely has created an entire world around his brand, which is pretty remarkable. So if we go to the next slide, you can see, just pulled some examples of some work that I've done recently at Ralph Lauren. I work in what are called knits, cut and sew knits to be exact. So kind of what we design are things like t-shirts and rugbies and polos, like our little small pony polo. We do hoodies, sweatpants, those polar fleece jackets. So this is just some examples here of what that product looks like. I work on, I've worked in children's wear. I've worked in boys, girls, a little bit on women's wear, and now I'm on menswear. So I've kind of been around the block over at Ralph Lauren. And then the next slide, you can see, I also work on a lot of our special projects initiatives. So those are things like Wimbledon, US Open, Olympics, Something else to mention is I also work on all of our Polo Bear product. So the Polo Bear, he's always like wearing like a really cute outfit within the season. That's all done by me on the men's knits team. So just a quick overview of the many things that I do, but yeah.
Amazing. Well, I think Michael would love to probably like the question here, and I think we've got so many people on this call, so we're all probably wanting to hear a little bit more about everything that you're doing. Like, can you tell us briefly, like, how is like a company like Ralph Lauren like structured? Like, is it, is it a lot of different departments? Is it a bunch of fashion designers? Like, we'd like to hear a little bit, maybe just a brief overview of what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as I mentioned, we were looking at the Ralph Lauren slide. There are many sort of labels or brands under Ralph Lauren itself. Each of those brands is kind of like split up into a tree. So you have under each of those brands, you have designers, you have merchandisers, you have what are called production designers, which are people who help basically like supply chain and produce the product through the factories. You've got tech designers who help you develop like measurements and specs. So each brand, each label has their own team to support that label. It's a really large company, but it also feels like a really small company. It's still very family owned. So Ralph is around all the time. I have meetings almost weekly with Jerry Lauren, who is his brother. So you actually like get to know them, and everyone kind of knows each other. And like I said, it feels very family. It feels very old school, but it's a really fun company to work for.
That's awesome. And tell me, as a fashion designer, and I'm sure a lot of people are kind of wondering also, like, as a fashion designer, like, are you the one who's like deciding on collections, or is that coming from like, kind of the corporate or the management? Like, and who are you working with primarily during your days? Like, are you solo, or are you like working a lot with the tech people to kind of work on the specs? And like, are you in touch with merchandisers? Like, how is it related?
So it's a very collaborative effort. I always kind of like use the metaphor of like a ship. So you have those who are like captains of the ship, and you have all these other workers who are helping support it in their like different roles. So basically, kind of to like summarize it quickly. Seasonally, we will have both our merchandising team, who are in charge of like the business of the brand, and you have your concept team, who are in charge of sort of like the trend forecasting. They're in charge of like developing color palettes. They'll help pull like stripes and prints and things for us to use. So basically, the concept team creates a toolbox for us as designers to use in that season, in that collection for that season. And then our merchandisers, they come to us and say, okay, we need 5 t-shirts to comp what we did last year. We need 6 rugbies to comp what we did last year. So I take that information, translate it, and I take the concepts information, and kind of like my role, I always joke, is like I'm the man in the middle. Like I'm trying to keep all teams happy. So, concept will say, well, we want 10 rugbies, and merchandise says, well, we want 5. So it's my job to figure out, okay, how can I make 2 rugbies that they want into 1 rugby.
Right.
So that's kind of like how the season starts. And then as I work through the season, I start working with different teams throughout the process. So once I develop the product, I hand it off to our production team, who works with the factories to develop it. And then I work with our technical people, who are in charge of building the measurements and bringing things in for fitting. So it's a very collaborative effort. And depending on where we are in the process, I'm working with different teams at different times. And those cycles usually last around like 2 to 3 months.
Got you. So it's really like, it's extremely collaborative, right? In some ways.
Extremely collaborative.
Yeah, because sometimes maybe people thinking like a designer, you're kind of working solo a little bit on your things. So tell us about your journey. I think that's a question that a lot of people actually, I'm already seeing like some some questions here that are asking a bit about like, could you share a bit about your journey and how you got to a big brand like that? Because I think that's
Mhm.
a lot of people are trying to get to those big brands. It's so hard to get. Like, how did you get there? Like, what? Maybe tell us a little bit. What did you study, and like, how did you navigate your way into Ralph Lauren?
hmm Um, so I guess I feel like I kind of have like sort of a unique story. I grew up in Kentucky in a very small town, pretty much like on a farm in Kentucky. And when I went to college, I didn't really have like the resources available to me to know that like I could go to like an art and design school. So I ended up going to a liberal arts school for a little bit and I started studying costume design. And then I kind of realized, oh, I think like maybe fashion design would be for me. My parents actually encouraged me to look at that. So um, I transferred to SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design. There I studied fashion design. And then around my junior year, I landed an internship at Tommy Hilfiger the summer of my junior year. Came to New York for the first time. Met a lot of people. Ended up interning at Tom Brown after that in the winter of my senior year, and that was through a, a person that I knew from school. So that was fortunate for that. And then once I graduated, I landed a job at Tommy Hilfiger, which I got through interning essentially. It's really important when you intern. Well, one, it's really important to intern. Two, it's really important to maintain those relationships and build those relationships while you're interning and maintain them when you leave your internship. Because like I said, like I landed that job because I knew the director of design and men's at Tommy Hilfiger. Um, and when that job came about, she contacted me. It was like, "Hey, there's this role that I really want you to apply for." So got that job, which was really fortunate. I left there after about a year and a half and started kind of like freelancing around. Wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. Ended up landing a temp to perm role, which is essentially like freelancing, but it's with the idea that they might hire you full time. They have a full time position available. Um, so I landed a temp to perm role at Ralph Lauren, and I've been there for 8.5 years now.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
So it
And
was a long, winding journey, but I got there eventually.
you did, and you were. It was
Yeah.
amazing that you were able to land like big internships, right? And already
hmm
at big brands directly, right? Which is pretty awesome.
hmm
Tell us a little bit maybe about, and then we'll open it up in 5 minutes to the Q&A because I'm seeing a lot of great questions. I won't get to all the questions, guys, but I'm going to try to understand some of the thematics here because a lot of them are there. Tell us a little bit about like what is the most exciting and also what are the most challenging aspects of like, working in fashion and in at like such iconic brand like Ralph Lauren.
hmm Well, let's start with the rose before we get to the thorns. So So some of like the highlights of working in a company like Ralph Lauren is just like, I mean, one, I think everyone at the company says just like the pride of working at such a well-known brand. Um, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty fun to tell people when they ask you like, what do you do? You're like, oh, I'm a designer at Ralph Lauren. Just like you can see that they're like impressed by that. Um, which I mean, I'm a pretty humble person, but that it does make you feel pretty good. Um, it's something new every day. It's challenging. There's a lot of challenges when it comes to designing for a brand that is so what we call heritage. It's so we kind of like reference ourselves a lot. So when I'm looking at what's new in the industry, I'm actually kind of just like pulling a lot of old references from Ralph Lauren that feel relevant to today, and then reinterpreting them in a modern way. So I guess if I were to say something that is like more challenging about working there, that would kind of be it, is just um, learning how to take the heritage of Ralph Lauren and make it modern and make it relevant every day, as well as interpreting that into something that's meaningful to me. Because as a designer, when you're designing, like you have you, you have to be convicted of what you're creating. You know, you have to stand by what you design. So just learning how to translate that is challenging, but it also helps you grow as a designer.
For sure, for sure. And I imagine, yeah, I imagine working for such a big, yeah, brand must be also because you're a creative, but the truth is that for a lot of creatives who don't know is that, you always most likely going to have to work within constraints and a framework, and like unless you're on your own and then you're doing your own thing, and that's
Hmm.
as well, right? But
We still have very strict business needs. You know, we need our small pony polos every year. We have
yeah,
a huge core line that does a lot of business, but there also are plenty of styles that I create every season that are more concept and more fun, I guess, as a designer, you could say.
right, right. And so tell us a little bit, and thanks guys for asking all those great questions, by the way. We'll get to you guys. I guess one last question for me before maybe I start reading some also questions from everyone here. Tell me a little bit about, like, you've been there yourself, right? So now I think you have enough perspective to kind of see, like, what do you think are like the main skills and like qualities that students or fresh graduates should, think of having in order to thrive in an industry like that and in a job like yours?
Um, I would say good qualities would be things like um, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, Having a lot of endurance, having a lot of tenacity. It's a challenging um, world. Fashion is. You will get a lot of no's, and then one day you'll get a yes, and that yes will springboard you to places that you dreamed of. You know, so I think that being someone who doesn't give up easily is really good. And I know these are way more virtuous sort of qualities rather than like telling you, be a good studier or whatever. But I really do believe that eagerness to learn and passion for what you do really, really is something that an employer looks for. Um, Understanding yourself, understanding and standing by like what you design is all lumped in within that as well. Design companies, when they're interviewing you, they want to see that you bring a unique perspective to the fashion world, that you're able to be this special gear that is within this machine. You know what I mean? So they're not looking for people who are carbon copies of each other. They really do want people um, who are eager to learn and, like I said, passionate about what they do.
I love that. And I think, yeah, it's
Yeah.
a real answer, which is what we want to hear. So looking at some of the questions here, um, again, won't get to all of them, but we'll do everything that I can because we've got 20 more minutes for that Q&A. Somebody's asking a bit about, like, what has been the most surreal experience that you've had so far? I think that's a great question. Like maybe a crazy highlight or the biggest project.
Um, ooh. I would say like when I was doing, I think, and this was like a while ago. I wouldn't say it's like number one, but it's definitely something that sticks out in answering this question would be when I was doing like my senior collection at SCAD. Um, Andre Leon Talley was on the board of directors or for SCAD, and he would come and like present an award to a fashion designer within the industry every year. And he like selected like a few students to like come and like have a chat with him after our fashion show just based on like he was like, "Oh, I love your work," and just like having that experience with somebody like a titan like Andre Leon Talley, that felt pretty surreal.
Got it.
um, especially like somebody like me, I never would have thought that I would have been at SCAD, like talking to these people. I think that was pretty cool. Seeing your work, just like, I mean, I gotta be honest, like seeing people on the street wearing what you designed and they have no idea that you're like right beside them feels pretty surreal and pretty cool. You're like watching people get on the airplane and you're looking up and you're like, oh, I worked on that. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, I'm not telling, like, you don't tell people that, but those experience, like from high to low, are all surreal to me.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
I'd be so happy to like walk around in the street and see somebody like this doing what I
Well,
design.
and it makes it feel even cooler when they're like dressed really cool and they're wearing something that you designed. You're like, oh, I love the way they like interpreted that. That's really fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're having a lot of questions about that, so I'm gonna kind of choose one. But do you have any recommendations for those who want to engage in the fashion field but are kind of starting like from zero, like people who don't have fashion, or design backgrounds? Like, how can you, how can people with their own backgrounds, are able to make it? Like, do you need a design or fashion degree to make it? And also, like, how do you do when you, yeah, when you start from zero? Like, I mean, do you have some advice on that?
I mean, I would say I pretty much started from zero as well. When I went to school, I didn't have a portfolio. I didn't know how, like, I had just learned how to sew, really. Like, I didn't know how to draw. Like, when I got to school, there were all these kids who had been like taking fashion illustration courses since they were like 12. And I'm like, I don't even know what a fashion illustration is. So I definitely feel like, I started pretty much at that base level. um, but what I would really highly encourage those who are interested in going into fashion design to attend a fashion design school. I think it's really important for people to get an education in fashion design. It There are ways that you can design clothes without having an education. There are plenty of fashion design brands who have creative directors that do, but there are just so many. There's just so much value in being classically trained and learning how garments are constructed, um, learning how to use things like Adobe software. I find that like that has always given me a leg up within the industry.
Right.
Is a solid education.
Great. So you are recommending for people who want to enter at least fashion design to have a degree.
Hmm.
Which I understand, of course, because it's also technical, right? So you can't really
It's
invent
it's
it.
technical, but don't let that scare you. Like I said, like I got into a fashion school and I didn't have a portfolio. If if it's something that you're passionate about, there's ways that you can develop those skills, and there's plenty of schools that you can get into that don't require you to have a stellar portfolio and all these things. You
Yeah.
just need to work hard to achieve that.
Yeah. A lot of people are asking about fashion illustration, like per se. Like, can you tell us a little bit about, is there jobs for that? And like, is there, for example, internships at Ralph Lauren for fashion illustration? Or is that something that's, yeah, I think I'm seeing like a few questions about that. So perhaps if you could tell us.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I would say the world has changed quite a bit. Like, I wouldn't say so much that like when I started in the industry until now, but I will say that like, back in the day, everyone did draw by hand. Like you were illustrating everything by hand. Now a lot of what I do when I sketch is pretty much done through Adobe software on the computer. So yes, there are careers in fashion illustration. They're just definitely a lot more niche now. There are a lot more people who do fashion illustration work for more like runway companies. A lot of companies that are like Balenciaga, Chanel, like those like smaller runway companies, they still really highly value fashion illustration, and Ralph Lauren too. I mean, we have like The guy who does our polo bears, he's a fashion illustrator. The people that design our collection and red carpet gowns, they're fashion illustrators. So there are still jobs out there. I wouldn't say that there are as many as there are just like through Adobe software, but it's definitely a skill that you should learn, and there's definitely a market for it out there. Yeah.
Right. Right. I think that's great to kind of hear a little bit, because it's also understand that it's also good to know that the industry is shifting, right? Sometimes the schools are like not updating fast enough a little bit, like which is normal. It's, major institutions, right? But it's very important to stay on what's happening in the market. Some people are asking about like internships at Ralph Lauren, or like how often does a company, you might not also be so in tune with that, but do you know how often a company like Ralph Lauren is hiring? Are you guys on a hiring freeze like a lot of companies are right now, or are you guys still like recruiting? Like, how does it work for you guys?
So for internships or just hiring in general?
I think in both. Why not, right?
Okay.
Because questions about both.
Yeah. So internships usually come around the summer. The most companies will have like summer internship programs, and it's where students are obviously like on their summer break from their schools, and they'll come and they'll receive college credit and or get paid for their hours. Highly recommend doing that. Some companies, depending on the company, more like larger corporate companies, do internships pretty much throughout the entire year. That's not something that Ralph Lauren does, but some companies do. As far as hiring, not on a hiring freeze. We actually have like tons of open positions. We're looking
Great.
for 2 assistant designers just in my like little bubble in my little team. So yeah, definitely not a hiring freeze. So yeah.
That's amazing. I'm so happy to hear. So for some of you guys who've already graduated who are on this call, go ahead and take a look as well at if they're, I mean, of course, like if you're still a student, they will not be hiring you full time, like yes, but like so that you can focus on internships. And we'll talk about, of course, I'm like pretty biased about the importance of internships. But it's great to know that you guys are not on a hiring freeze and that you have positions available. So definitely go ahead
Yeah,
and
when we during COVID, we ended up like furloughing a lot of people. A lot of people got laid off, and then now, as we're rebuilding our business, we're also rebuilding our teams, and that's kind of the same across a lot of the fashion brands. As the business is growing, now we need more people to come back because we like leaned out our teams so much.
That's amazing to hear. I mean, it's really sad, of course, during COVID that a lot of people got laid off, but it's really cool to,
Mm-hmm.
I think you guys should be encouraged by that, because a lot of the narrative is that we're in recession, nobody's hiring. So you guys should be encouraged by the fact that actually companies are rehiring, right? So I think we've got a lot of questions around like the same thematic. And actually we have Kenzie who's saying hi from Louisville, Kentucky. So I guess you have a
Hey,
and she's
that's
asking.
where I'm from.
I love that. So Kenzie and a lot of people other asking like, how did you secure your internship? Like, what are some tips for networking? Like, does networking, a lot of questions are also about, did networking help you to excel further? And I think you talked a little bit about that, but maybe you can give us like a little bit more about this.
Absolutely. I'm a pretty social person, so like networking is like pretty easy for me, but I think it's definitely like something that's really important. As I mentioned earlier, like um, one of my friends from school, had an internship at Tom Brown, and then she ended up like bringing me over there with her. So that was like a huge opportunity for me that I don't think that I would have ever gotten had I not like known her, networked with her. Um, the internship at Tommy Hilfiger, I have to admit that one was kind of like more like luck. Like I just like I think there was like they were like saying at my school like, oh, they're hiring interns at Tommy, like whoever wants to apply, and I applied and I got it. But I do think that, like I said, like maintaining those relationships and building those relationships while you're at your internship is just immeasurable. Like when what happens is you will intern and then you'll go back to school, and if you don't like maintain that relationship, honestly, that hiring that like director, they might kind of forget like, you know, that you were an intern there. But as soon as a role comes along, you want them to remember your name. You want them to say, "Oh, I had that intern that was really good and like really proactive, who like still keeps in contact with me. Let's see if we have something for them." So very, very important.
100%. Couldn't agree more. And I think even for our participants, like a lot of them are getting hired, later down the line as well because they were able to maintain that relationship. So I think it's extremely important.
Hmm.
We're getting some questions about how do you stand out from like other young designers, right, to potential employers. People are asking about like importance of resumes and portfolios. Like, it's true, how do you stand out? Because it is, there's a lot of really talented people out there, right? So, and you might not have the question to the $1 million question, to obviously that you might not have the answer to the $1 million question, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, kind of like I mentioned before, it's just like having your own point of view and not like letting anyone else tell you any different. So like I I built my portfolio, and I got it. I have to be honest, like I've interned at places who have asked me to like they've asked me to submit a project and then they asked me to edit my project because it didn't really fit like their aesthetic. And I was just like, no, I'm not doing that. Like this is like who I am. And I'm not saying like don't be rude or anything, but what I am saying is come with a unique point of view. When you find that company that values who you are as a designer, that's where you need to be. So kind of like not really answering the question as much as like what does it take to stand out, but what I am saying is coming with your own sense of style, bringing your own ideas into fashion that is what makes you stand out. So whatever that means to you, as being like a unique designer, being true to yourself, that is what makes you stand out as a designer.
I like that. It's I think
Yeah.
it's important to keep your integrity, right, during that process as well. Um, People are asking you about like how much New York has impacted you as a designer. Like, what are what are the resources that you're kind of like utilizing to stay updated and like find inspiration? Do you have like a couple pointers for us on that?
Oh my God, New York is like it's incredible. So I have to say, like, just a quick anecdote, like, you know, during COVID, being at home all the time, and I work from home quite a bit now as well. Um, Returning to the office and like commuting to work and like actually walking around the streets of New York, you forgot, like I forgot, like how much inspiration is out there. Um, so many trends like you can just pick up on so easily just by riding the subway, like riding the train home every night. I'm like, oh, those shoes are cool now. Okay, like I've seen like five different people wearing red cowboy boots. Like that's weird. And just things like that that you're like, oh, okay, like I get it. Definitely like living in New York City has impacts you as a designer as well as like helps you kind of get a leg up on like what trends and what's like new and up and coming. Yeah.
I love that. You're making me miss New York now, but it's true that the fashion is right there. You can just like look around and see what's up. That's for sure.
And everyone just like kind of picks up on each other. Like you'll see somebody wearing something one way one day and you're like, then you go to your closet and you're like, oh, I have something like that. I'm going to wear it this way. And so
Yeah.
everyone just kind of like feeds off each other and it works pretty well that way.
I love that. So I'll take one question from you before we move on as well to the program, and you'll be staying on, and then maybe we'll, if we have time, we'll get a couple questions more towards the very end. But what does your day to day look like? That was actually a question that I wanted to ask because I think it's going to give a little bit of insights for people who want to go towards fashion design to understand what actually is like. There's expectations versus reality, right? So do you
Hmm.
have? Yeah, of course, I'm sure there's no standard day, but do you have a little bit of information about that?
Yeah. So, it really depends on kind of like where we are in the design cycle. So as I was kind of talking about before, is like, we work on a season, and a season launch, let's call it that, can take around like 2 to 3 months. So it really depends on where we are in our design calendar. So at the beginning of the design calendar, I'm pulling inspiration, kind of like what everyone consider like the fun part. Pulling inspiration, building out like mood boards, looking at color swatches, working with like our concept team and our merchandising team to identify like the needs for the season. And then once we do that, then the next few weeks, I'm just like sketching like all day, every day. Like honestly, sometimes my fingers hurt. It's like so many sketches, but wouldn't trade it for the world. I also consider that the fun part. Sketching for like a few weeks, and then the next few weeks is like meetings with concept, meeting with merchandising, making sure everything's good to go. Then we enter what are called like the handoff process. So that's me like passing off information to our production design team and our tech team. And that's kind of like it's a little tedious of a process. Like you're literally speccing like what size button you want, what color thread you want, on which part of the body, like what fabrics you want. So it's like very, very detailed information passing off. And then we have fittings and we have showrooms. So it really just kind of like depends on where we are in the cycle, but it's just that, a cycle. So every 3 months is, you're kind of like working on the same thing. Yeah.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Michael, I want you to stay. Are you able to stay a little bit so that we can maybe
Yeah,
go back
absolutely.
to questions? Great, because
Yeah.
I'll introduce the program for 10 minutes or so, and then I'll ask everybody can also keep asking questions. So during my presentation, you guys can like keep thinking about questions for us and also for Michael. Michael is one of our coaches and our industry coaches, so he knows the program really well, and he's also talking one-on-one with our students and our participants that get into the program. So let me just explain basically what ABI is. You know, our concept is that we're trying to help the same way that we're organizing those webinars. We're helping people to break into the creative industries. That's kind of like, you know, our main goal, and we really want to make this happen because we know that those fields are super competitive and very much about who you know. Let's be real. Mike just told us about that. So, you know, just a couple of things about our program and what it includes. We offer personalized coaching and professional developments. So that's a really big part of it. I'll explain what it is. We have a guaranteed internship placement through the program as well. We offer personalized support, and we're very big on the network. You will hear me say network 10 times because there's nothing better than that. That's how you find jobs and internships. So we have destinations, different places that we do that. We've got New York City, of course, Chicago, Los Angeles, Berlin, Melbourne, Sydney, and we also offer opportunities virtually. If you are not able to afford to relocate, for example, you can still intern with cool companies virtually. In terms of our industries, so today we talked a lot about fashion, right? So we've got fashion, but we've also got stuff in design, in the fine arts area, in entertainment, media field, and also in the advertising, comm, and marketing types of fields. This is an exhaustive list of all of our internship types. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but if you guys go on our website, you can really see what we have in all of those areas. You know, so for example, fashion, we've got lots of stuff in marketing, wholesale, trend forecasting, PR, editorial, some in styling, talent management. Fashion design is very, very competitive, as Michael, you know, has mentioned a little bit. But yeah, so those are all the areas. We've got stuff in design and all those other fields. Recommend for you guys to really look into that before, if you are considering to apply to our program. So that way you can kind of select what are the things that are of interest to you. So talking about the coaching, that's the first step for us. It's a curriculum that we offer. It's all happening online on your own time. And basically it's 10 kind of course levels. It's not theoretical too much. It's really pragmatic stuff that we're trying to get you in. It's stuff that we've built based on what recruiters, people like Michael has told us that we should teach our future interns. So you're going to be paired with different professionals in the field. I didn't add Michael here as one of our coaches because I know you guys were going to meet him, but I'm adding also other coaches so that you can see how they look like. But we're going to help you rebuild your resume. We're going to help you build your portfolio as well if you are a creative. You're going to get some industry insights because you'll have a coaching session, for example, with somebody like Michael on a one-on-one setting to talk a bit about, you know, either your portfolio or the industry perspectives based on what you want to do. We'll have some interview preparation as well. You'll talk to recruiters to learn how to do a job interview. It's a skill. And then we'll talk also about, mindset for the workplace. Like, what are the skills that you need to build your brand as a creative? What type of managers you're going to get? How you're going to deal with difficult managers, because that's a reality. So we're going to really teach you all of that. And we're also going to take a look at like what your goals are in the future and how can we retro plan from there. How can we build from there, from where you are now? A lot of those questions was about this, right? How do I start from where I am now to get there? We're going to work on that with a career coach. So that's the first element. The second element is the internship, right? So we guarantee an internship placement, an internship offer, typically ranging from 3 to 6 months based on your availability. We have internships year round, okay? Spring, fall, summer, whenever you want to do it. You can do it for academic credit if your university allows it. Highly recommend to do it, because that way you're advancing not only your career, but also your degree. One thing that we're very transparent about, although I really wish we can't guarantee that it's going to be paid internships, because we work with a lot of different companies. Some of them, of course, pay, but some of them are also boutique and niche and do like unpaid or for academic credits. So that's something that's important that we say from the get. If you're going to join the program, you need to know that. If it's a deal breaker, then obviously maybe not the right program for you. So some of our company partners that you can see here, we've got like really, we've got some really big names like, Vice and CBS and TBWA and Hypebeast and McCann, but we also have a lot of super cool boutique firms, that are like smaller team, but you're gaining a lot of exposure as well because you're kind of everywhere, which is pretty cool. So travel support, if you're going overseas, right? A lot of you guys, I don't know where you're from. Some of you are maybe from the US, Australia, like Asia. If you want to do our program overseas, we're going to help with all the relocation process. So we'll do visa, insurance, housing. We'll help you to kind of move, because that's a big, big hustle. So all of that is going to be our team helping you. And then when you arrive, you'll be meeting people to kind of get orientated. And then you'll have continued support throughout the process. I think that's a really cool part of the program, is that it's very personal. So you're getting a virtual coordinator that's going to be there throughout the whole time of your journey, from the moment you join and you get accepted to the very end. And then you'll also get an in-city coordinator. So, you'll have somebody also once you're in town that's going to do events and that's going to be there to meet you up. So that way you're always supported throughout the journey. I know it's very daunting to start your career. So that was a really important part for us to kind of offer you that support, at least throughout our program, so that you can feel equipped. So the final one is the community that we offer. So that's a big thing for us. Michael talked about the importance of networking. We have our own networking app where all of our, I think we've got some participants that are here today on our call. So we're all able to connect with each other. We're sharing job opportunities, internship opportunities, like from our alumni. We're doing a bunch of events. We're organizing webinars like that. We're bringing resources. This is something that's a lifetime membership. Even when you're done with the program, you're still on that app. You're still able to talk to people and connect, because that's what you're going to get from this program. An internship is great, but the long-term gain and investment that you're bringing on this program is going to be about the relationships that you're going to make. And I tell my participants that all the time. So the tuition for the course and the curriculum that we offer is different whether you're going to do something locally or internationally. Okay, so if you're doing something locally, the tuition for the course and the curriculum is $2,250 USD. It's about one course in college in the US. So that includes everything that we talked about, the entire curriculum, all the sessions, the work also that we'll do to identify internships, and then all the events and everything. If you're doing international, it's a little bit more. It's $1,000 more because we have to handle this travel support element, which is a lot of work: visa, insurance, housing. It's a lot of kind of things for us to kind of organize. So this is a tuition breakdown. Most of it's going towards the curriculum. You're getting some of it for the events and some of it for the travel support and the technology. We have a lot of information on that on our website, and you guys can also contact us if you have questions on this. We also have scholarships as well that we offer, which I highly, highly recommend you guys to take a look at, because it can help as well to fund the tuition. A lot of universities also have grants for those types of programs, right? And for internships. So this is just, to finalize here, you guys can go on our IG, on our Instagram, and also on our website. You have a lot of like examples of like what people did, and everything that they've done through their internship, where they intern. Final slide, and then we'll go back to like asking questions, whether it's going to be about the program or with Michael, is the application process. One thing that I want you guys to know, and the reason why we're doing this session now, is that we have a summer deadline, a first summer deadline that's happening soon in November 15. I know it's like the fall for a lot of you guys. Apologies for my Australian friends who are like, I know you're about to enter your summer, but we're talking our summer in like June, July, August. We take applications early because summer is the most competitive term. As Michael was mentioning, that's when most of the companies are doing internships. So if you want to apply, there's no fees to apply, by the way, so it's open to anyone. You can submit an application form. You'll find that out on our website. Typically, we want to see your resume. If you have a portfolio, that's awesome. And then just a short, essay, so that we know what you want to do and where you want to go. After that, you'll have an interview with our, admission team, and then we will take a look at your profile and make a decision whether we can get you into the program or not. So that's going to be kind of the next step from here. And so our first big deadline is going to be November 15. We will have other deadlines for summer, but as I mentioned, the longer the deadlines are, the further the deadlines are, the harder it's going to be, because everybody's waking up. I was a student, so I know we all procrastinate. So, November 15 is our first deadline. You have here a QR code. If you want to grab that, you can check if you're eligible, because not everybody's eligible for the program. So you can enter where you want to go, your major, like what's your student status. So that's a little bit more, about the program, basically. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And if you all have any questions, Michael, if I can get you back on there. And if you guys have any questions about, the program, so I'll kind of like, I'll answer some of them, Michael, and then I'll bring in more questions for you, okay? If you don't mind.
Okay.
So I'm having somebody who says, how long does the course kind of last, right? And which summer month? So the course is like super easy, because it's done on your own time. So you can do it while you're studying. So typically the way it would work is that if you're applying for summer, you would like during the spring do our preparation, right? Our boot camp online, like while you're doing your classes, you'll be working on your resume, your portfolio, and then we'll start placing you, and then your internship will be in the summer. So typically the length of the program with us will be about 6 months. So let's say like your 3 months of prep and then your 3-month internship. But it's going to be something, again, that we've built so that you can do it on top of your class or on top of any job as well. So somebody's asking, can college seniors apply to the program? Yes. So we take college students. We don't take first year, only second, third, fourth, masters, of course, and then fresh graduates. I can accept fresh graduates. So if you've graduated for like a year or two, we can still move forward. Yeah, so that's just to kind of answer your question. Somebody's asking about scholarships. So we have scholarships. We have what we call an ambassador scholarship, which is up to $1,000 for our international program and up to $500 for our local program. So for that, you can apply on our website. In the application form, there's a section for this. And then somebody's asking about the references, because we do ask for 2 references. I'm sure, Michael, for Ralph Lauren, also they will ask for references when you're applying for a job. It doesn't need to be letters. It can just be professors, for example, like professors that could vouch for you if we were to, contact them. So yes. So, sorry. So Hara is sending me a question from Elijah. So are internships guaranteed to be in the specific creative field of interest? So that's our goal. When we admit you in the program, we always kind of define, and I think Mike, you're talking to our students a lot, right? There's a lot about like kind of defining the strategy of the internship. We talk about that a lot in the admissions process. What are your primary focuses? What industries do you want to primary focus on? And then like what internship types? And our goal from our team is to get you in that primary kind of zone that you want. We always define backups though, just in case, because, we need to have backups in case your primary like preferences, don't have any traction, right? Like maybe Michael, if I can ask you like one thing, like, when you're talking to our students and our participants, like, you know, do you feel like what's more important for them? Like, would you say that the resume or the portfolio on your end? Like, a lot of people were asking about that as well. Like, in your opinion, for fashion careers.
I would say at this level, your portfolio is more important.
Yeah.
Once you get further down the road, your resume becomes more important, but that's like more like director level. But at this point, I would definitely say like seeing, and as I mentioned before, like your unique perspective, like seeing what you bring to the table is much more important than seeing that you've had 5 years experience. No one expects that.
Right. Yeah. That makes perfect sense, right? And I think it also depends, as you mentioned, right? You might have fashion marketing people entering wholesale or marketing or other areas. Like, of course, resume is going to be, I imagine, the most important, right?
You're right, right. Just talking like if you're talking like a creative internship, like a design internship, then maybe portfolio. But if you're talking like marketing and that sort of stuff, a creative portfolio is not as important.
Yeah, totally. Um, I'm having a question that's saying like, hey, I'm from Philadelphia. It's about 2 hours to New York. If chosen for the program, could I still be able to relocate if I wanted to do it once I'm accepted into the program? Yes, for sure. So like if it's all going to depend on what you're choosing, right? If you're choosing the virtual program from the get, we might outreach companies everywhere. But if you're telling us I want to be in New York, and maybe you have a New York company that could be a bit, I think some companies now are flexible about remote or in office. Like then that's the case. You can definitely choose whether you want to relocate. But highly recommend, as Michael was saying, to like if you can, of course, because New York is expensive. I will not lie. Michael will not lie. It's like it's no joke to live in New York. But if you can do it, and if you can invest in being in New York, of course, or other places like LA or Chicago, I mean, there's nothing, it's amazing to be in the city, to kind of like, be in the hustle and bustle. Like there's something about that, right? Specifically to inspire you
Mm-hmm.
with your work. So Grace is asking like, hey, I'm from England, and if I relocate to say New York, can I still use student financial loans to pay for the program? So Grace, I think that's a question you might want to reach out to us via email. I think I'll ask the team here also to put our email in there, our advisor email. Normally, yes, like there's a lot of funds that you can utilize for overseas programs. And for example, from Australia, like lots of government fund to go overseas. So I'm definitely pretty sure, Grace, that like if you have like some student financial loans, like you can try to utilize that, maybe not to pay for the tuition part, but maybe for expenses. So there's a lot of funding out there, you guys. Highly recommend to just look for it. You got to look for that. Like it's not, people are not going to hand it to you, but on your university websites you can potentially find a lot of really good stuff in there. So I think, let me go back, just we have 5 more minutes left, guys. So if you want to ask like your kind of last questions, I think it would be now. We had a question from Lila who was asking you, Mike, like in regards to internships, right, during your undergrad, do you think it's better to stay at only one company or try to intern at different places? And I think that's a great question for our program too.
Oh yeah, definitely intern different places. Excuse me. Before I entered the fashion industry, I thought, oh, like I'm more of like a creative designer. I only want to work at like a runway company. I don't want to be at like a big commercial company. Like I would have never in a million years saw myself at somewhere like Ralph Lauren or Tommy Hilfiger. But after interning, I realized that actually like I enjoy that. I enjoy working at those companies. And I would have never known that or never gained that experience had I not designed it somewhere like Tommy Hilfiger and then gone to somewhere like Tom Brown. So I would definitely say spread spread out as much as you can, meet as many people as you can. Yeah, highly encourage you to experiment while you're in your first few years.
Of course, of course. I'm also with that on Michael's end. I also think that there's a lot of value to have as many places as possible because you're building up your relationships from there, and then those are people that you can reactivate when you're actually looking for jobs, right? So don't put all your eggs in the same basket. Like I mean, you never know.
Mm-hmm.
If you had only intern, at one spot, you might have had not, you might not have gotten this role right at Ralph. So I think it makes a lot of sense. So we're having one question, and then I'll ask you one final question on your end, Michael, before we wrap this up, because we've got 3 minutes. Thomas is asking, what is the difference between a portfolio to start out compared to a resume of past experiences? Like, what would you say would be a very junior portfolio, Mike? Maybe, I don't know if that's a clear, or if I should ask it.
Yeah, so a portfolio, I mean, sorry if like I'm dumbing it down, but a portfolio is like examples of your work, visual examples of your work. So depending on your field, that could include projects like if you're in film, like, you know, short films, that could be a part of your portfolio. In fashion design, that would probably be more like fashion sketches and showing like how you develop a design from start to creation, or, you know, through production. So portfolio is more of like a visual representation of your work or examples of your work. A resume is more just kind of like a one-page list of the places that you've worked and detailed like what you've done at those companies. So they definitely go hand in hand, but they're two separate things.
Totally. And I think that that's something during the program, and Michael also is doing portfolio reviews as well. That's something that during the program we really talk about, because those are your materials that are just going to be your brand, you know, and it's very important. They're going to be the, you know, recruiters who are the gatekeepers of jobs and internships are going to look at that. So you've got one shot with those guys, and those guys will take a look at it in like literally 7 seconds, 10 seconds somehow. So it's also learning how to put your best, you know, work at the very top, like your resume, also building out, even if you don't have too much experience, they say fake it till you make it is real. So how can you like find volunteering and academic projects that really look relevant, right? That's going to be the big thing. And we work on that as well within the program a lot, because, you know, we think that that's what's going to get our participants a better chance to get internships. So guys, thank you so much. I'm realizing now that we're at the hour, and I want to respect all of your time. So Michael, this was amazing, you know, to like get your insight. Thank you for being real and for just telling it also how it is, you know, and not sugarcoating it, or, you know, being generous with your knowledge. I think we've learned a lot, at least I've learned a lot here about like your role and maybe your take on what it, you know, what it actually needs to happen to get in. We're very blessed to have you as one of our coaches for the program, and thank you again so much for your time, and thank you all, most importantly, for like coming through. We're still 53 at the final hour, so you guys there and
keeping their attention.
Endurance, you were saying about endurance, like
yeah.
So
well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I hope that everyone gained something from this conversation, for sure.
I'm pretty sure they did. And we'll send you all an email with the recording, so that way you can see it. And feel free to reach out to us, of course, if you have any question. Michael, best of luck for tomorrow, for the rest of your week, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Alrighty.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.